This clip of the Texas Bucket List is brought to you by Spirit of Texas Bank, Slovacek Sausage, Germania Insurance, TX Burger, and RV Source. Howdy, and welcome to the Texas Bucket List, the show dedicated to everything there's to see, do, and experience right here in the Lone Star State. My name is Shane McAuliffe, and this week we head to one of the most legendary courtrooms in all of Texas. It's off to Langtry to learn about the one and only Judge Roy Bean. Over in southwest Texas, along the border of Mexico, is a majestic landscape leading the way to the west. And once you cross the Pecos River, you'll find yourself in a notorious section of our state. This is where the West gets wild, and the story of an infamous lawman who happened to be a saloon owner and even a judge still resonates off the rocks of Langtry.
Well, Langtry's kind of special, has a very interesting history. We have almost as many historical markers as we have population.
Jack Skiles is another legend of Langtry whose grandfather came to this part of the Lone Star State in 1905.
I'd grown up as a kid hearing about Judge Roy Bean, but most of what the local people said was rather derogatory. They often referred to him as that old scoundrel or that old scalawag or that old reprobate. I didn't even know what reprobate meant till I started writing about it and had to look it up in the dictionary.
In 1968, he opened the doors to the Judge Roy Bean Visitor Center to help tell a story he knew by heart. Heck, he wrote the book on it, Judge Roy Bean Country.
I interviewed those that were still living, I believe it was in about 1960. I was determined that I wanted to find out the truth about Judge Roy Bean.
It all started when Roy Bean decided to build a saloon in the rowdy railroad town that was booming with workers from every part of the world.
They had about 7,000 workers. Of course, now half of those approximately were Chinese, but then there was about 3,500 Americans and Italians and Germans and Mexicans and Irishmen, and of course, most all that bunch liked their whiskey, so Roy Bean set up a saloon at Vinegarone.
As the railroad moved west, so did the town, eventually landing in Langtry. By this time, the amount of arrests for disorderly conduct was getting out of control, and the Texas Rangers got tired of taking the charge all the way to Fort Stockton. So they appointed one Roy Bean as Justice of the Peace to help maintain order and make criminal cases a bit easier to handle.
There was a federal judge in El Paso, T.A. Falvey was his name, and he was quoted as saying that Judge Roy Bean was the right man at the right place at the right time. So he did the job that needed to be done here. This is Roy Bean's old saloon. Of course, the bar is not original. I guess local people tore his original bar down to get some boards. There's always a shortage of lumber in Langtry.
Known as the Jersey Lily, in honor of English actress Lily Langtry, whom Judge Bean had quite an affinity for, his bar court notary became a hall of Texas tall tales.
This building is the building. This is the building.
Yes, it is basically original. There have been repairs made through the years, of course, but out here in this dry climate, these boards don't rot very easily, so these are old boards we're looking at.
Wow. If the walls could talk.
During his time as judge, Roy only sentenced 2 men to hang, a popular misconception considering some call Bean the hanging judge. But clearing up any misnomers about Bean's law enforcement is something Mr. Skiles has been working on. But this by no means means Bean was a good guy.
And I always remember what one person, Mrs. Beulah Birdwell Farley, told me. I asked Beulah, I said, well, what did you think about Judge Roy Bean? She said, quote, he might have been a murderer and a robber and a thief, but he was good at heart. He was as full of bull as I am, more so.
While Bean did what he had to in order to keep order in town, the story that put his name in the marquee all started thanks to a world heavyweight prize fight that couldn't find a venue anywhere in the United States. Being so close to the border, Judge Bean had an idea and invited the promoters to have a fight down south.
Judge Roy Bean's prize fight held in 1896 was right down there where we see the water of the Rio Grande. At that time, that was a big gravel bar and a wide open space, and they erected a little footbridge, went across, walked down to the fight. Of course, many of the people that watched the fight did not pay anything because all they had to do was go down there and sit on top of the bluff.
The Texas Rangers weren't too thrilled to see Bean find a loophole around the professional fight.
If you can't stop it, you might as well enjoy it.
That's what Roy Bean told the Rangers when they arrived to stop the fight. You can't do a damn thing about it, so come on down and watch.
The fight only lasted 2 minutes, but those 2 minutes sealed Roy Bean's place in the history books.
Those Eastern reporters really ate that up. You know, he was really a tough old Western character.
Independent, all-knowing, stubborn, and fair, as long as you were on his good side. It's no wonder Texans can resonate with his wild spirit.
He was the law around this area. You know, he didn't necessarily go by the law, but he did see that this whole area was becoming somewhat civilized.
So if you want to get an idea of what life was like back in the Old West, just pull into Langtry and learn about Judge Roy Bean's method of Texas justice. And if you're really lucky, shoot the breeze with Mr. Skiles. Well, we're throwing the book and throwing a few down for on the Texas bucket list.
It's a part of history that needs to be preserved, and they're doing a good job of preserving it.
It does represent the spirit of Texans.
Nice little snapshot of what Texas is.
Well, the Judge Roy Bean was a man who came west of the Pecos and helped tame this whole territory.